to my computer.
Myself on mute.
All right, we are live on the recording. All right, so let me go ahead and go to the next slide. Presenter 3. I mean, does that say 3? Oh no, I'm sorry. Let me start that over. That's my fault. You ready, Ms. Brooks? You on mute.
Okay, I'm ready.
All right, let me start it over. You go ahead.
Okay, so as I was reading chapter 5,
Hold on. Sorry, sweetie. It's me. That was my fault.
Okay.
There we go.
So as I was reading chapter 5, I had wrote some notes about how assessment goes in my class and, just how kids react to assessments. And as I finished chapter 5, the conclusion part is what really stuck out to me the most. So the part, it was, as we pursue the goal of deepening students' understanding of conceptual relationships and their ability to transfer that understanding to grapple with novel contexts, we need to be intellectually honest with ourselves, our students, and all stakeholders about the data we are gathering from assessments. That kind of honesty is not always easy, but is vital if we want to help our students grow. We also need to be rigorous about our assessment design to ensure that our assessments are focused on what we really want to measure. Now that you have the foundation, growing your practice will require lots of reflection, feedback from trusted colleagues, and experimentation. Mistakes are great ways to learn. That's as true for us as it is for our students. So keep the principles and examples of assessment for conceptual learning in mind. Keep experimenting with personalized variations. Keep pushing yourself and others to try new things, and keep reflecting on how it's all working. With that combination, we have no doubt your assessments will help your students on their journey for deep conceptual understanding. And the part in this part that really stuck out is focused on what we really want to measure, because I know one of our evaluators from Metro Risa, when we looked at our assessment, she would ask, well, is this really assessing the standard? Because sometimes it's multiple things in one question. And it's like, is that really what you want the students to know? Is that really assessing what you need? And so now I look at them differently. And then I've also came up with, when I was looking at it, students, like I've had students that show their mastery through classwork, through homework, but when it comes times for an assessment, it all goes out the window because they have this anxiety. Society and education has put such a big thing on standardized tests and testing that kids, they're nervous and scared when they test. And it's really like, how can we go about this in another way? And one thing I did was do a play on words, when instead of giving my students a quiz, I would call it a quick check, just to kind of take away from that assessment. And I do like the other ways that they came up with, just to give them, especially with multiple choice, because we give that a lot, and have them to really explain, well, C is your answer, but why did you pick C? Explain why. So I think it gives me another way to look at assessment and try to take that anxiety piece from the students out.
All right, we can respond. I want to say one of the pieces that I got from you, that goes into one of the 4 principles, was the how you are assessing through the work that they're doing. And it says on number 4, the feedback throughout is not just the end for the for the assessment. It says, well, not that one, I'm sorry, number 5. The principles translate in the classroom where teachers constantly collect non-punitive evidence. That's what you're doing. And that goes right into what the assessment should look like. And also giving your feedback, quality feedback. You're not just using the assessment, you're using a collective of materials that are, should say, evidence that you've collected to help get that student the feedback they need to grow even more and to transfer that knowledge.
I was gonna chime in and say, you mentioned about assessing the standard. I think in order to get to what this chapter is talking about, we can have the attitude as gifted teachers of conceptual based feedback, but until leaders at the top realize the importance of it, I think a lot of teachers who teach gifted children and non-gifted children, I love all of the assessment, but they are the ones that are asking for the standardized test scores. And I think once that changes at the top, and when I say top, I don't even mean school district, I mean state testing, our country's testing. That's when I'll see a huge change.
I
Yeah.
like when you said keep experimenting, because sometimes we feel like the tests or assessments we give have to be perfect. But sometimes as a teacher, I even have to remind myself, like, it's okay to make mistakes and experiment.
All right, is this presenting two? I'm at the step. Oh, it's presenting one. Hold on, did I go to the next slide?
No, it
Not
just started
yet.
time again.
I hate when I always push the arrow and
It's okay.
I have the hardest time with it. But all
I
right.
just appreciate you for like getting all this together.
Yeah,
Ms.
thank
Brooks, are you
you.
good? I know you had to go, so I'll make sure, I'll put that in the notes too, okay? And I'll send you the link for this. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and present. All right, so I picked the power of effective feedback. Teachers' feedback on student work can be a powerful tool to dramatically improve student learning. However, the quality of the feedback is essential. Low quality feedback can actually have negative effects on students' growth. Feedback cannot simply say you are not at the learning goal. It should indicate exactly where the learning journey as the student is, which habits or strategies the students is using that might be working or might need to be changed, and give the students ideas for what to do next. It must demonstrate a belief in students' capacity to reach the goal, even while providing specific growth areas. To be effective, feedback must also be well-timed to help push a student's thinking to the next level. Now, I picked this because I know as teachers, we are always using assessments, but a piece that we normally don't do because of time is the feedback. And then if we do give the feedback, let's be real, is it really truly quality feedback that's going to give that student the push that they need to transfer the knowledge? Because I know, just like Ms. Brooks and Ms. Chelsea said, well, Ms. Chelsea said that when we are doing these assessments, they want us to look at the standard, but with concept-based, it's telling us to look a different way. How do we transfer what they learned to them? But how do we do that with the short time, what we're told to do? And also, how do we provide the feedback? I know this is something that has to be intentionally done. It does make you look at yourself to be when you give quality feedback, because that means you might have to actually go outside the box and get a little bit more research of how to support this learner to give to transfer the information from one topic to the next. So I just get that this is very intentional, and I feel like this could work, but like Ms. Chelsea said, it has to be across the board. It can't just be, okay, I'm the gifted teacher, I'm implementing this, but then, okay, you're implementing it that 1 year, but that baby's still gifted and they're going to go to another level. So what happens then? Does the learning stop? Does it continue? So, I mean, it gives me major concern of how we can effectively do this and be true to what we're doing and also do our job is at the same time. So, also another thing I wanted to go back to was number 5, but I'm about to run out of time.
Well, I'll respond to the feedback. Yeah, that was one I like in the pages that discuss feedback about it being quality. But something else the text mentioned is there has to be some time planned for revision and reflection. And it made me think about grading papers. Many of us, I know I'm guilty, you don't grade papers immediately. So let's say you grade something and it's 2 weeks later, then when do you have time to say, because sometimes I've graded papers and I'm like, I need to repeat this whole lesson, but we on to something else now. And so the time isn't there. And another area there important for feedback is writing. I know when I was on third, fourth, and fifth grade, or third and fourth, having that quality time to say, this is what, this is how I would like for you. What were you thinking when you wrote this? The book also gives some great scripts on page 130 of different things you can say to the children. But that takes time, and that could take up a whole lesson actually. So that's my comment about feedback.
Yeah, I was gonna say that area in the book was a lot for me because I have a hard time giving proper feedback. I teach first grade, so it's hard for me to give the feedback that the students can actually understand, So like, but prior to reading this, I let my kids see some of their grades. When I do grade stuff, same issue, even if it's 2 weeks later, I let them see it. And they'll ask me like, hey, is this good? So it's hard for me to give feedback when they don't even understand that grading scale completely. So I've been trying to get them into the way of, okay, what's really good? Like to me, 80 is mastery. So I'm like, if it's an 80, a 90, or 100, that's awesome. But if it's not, that means we still got to work on it. So like, that's how I've been trying to do little feedback. And from the book and what you were saying, they gave some ideas and some points that you need to focus on when you give feedback. So I felt like that was really helpful going forward. It's my turn now, right?
No, yeah. Okay, you ready?
Yep, let me just get to my page. Okay, so there was quite a bit that I took from this chapter, but I'm gonna just keep it sweet. I'm on page 121. And they kind of talked about designing the assessment. So I don't remember specifically where it was at that I saw it, so I don't want to waste my time trying to look for it, but I'm gonna just summarize it. I just know it was on page 121. But basically it was saying like, when you ask for students to recall things before you show them the picture, before you do the review, not recall, I'm sorry, I used it wrong. When you ask students a question before you show them the picture or the text or the video, it was saying that you should just see if they can pull from their prior memory. Because when you show them that video and you show them that picture, all they're gonna do is remember what you said. So that doesn't necessarily mean they understood it. A lot of the time students are saying what you said word for word. And that sounds great. It's like, okay, they're listening, they know what I said, but do they understand what they're saying? So as I was reading, I noticed that they brought up GRASP again. That's an acronym I saw in an earlier chapter. And I like how they applied it to assessment. So basically what they were saying is that when you're making assessments isn't the last thing you should do. It should go along with your planning. So if I'm making a unit plan about weather, and I know I have to talk about the types of weather, the seasons and clouds, along with each one of those individual points, I need to have a checkpoint, an assessment, or something so that it follows with it. It's harder to make, what I'm seeing. What I do is a lot of times I make an assessment once I know the lesson's done. Once I know I'm done and my kids understand, I start making that assessment for them, when really that's something I should have did based off the standard, based off of each learning target. So that's something I want to try and work on. Also, later on that page, probably on 122, they're just saying certain things that you should do to give scaffolding for the students so they have a better understanding. They had a lot of scaffolding strategies. So what I did is, as I was reading, I was just jotting down the strategies I actually know I do in class. That way I can see where I need to work on. So like some of the things I do is I make my presentations appealing. We don't want to see, kids don't want to see a whole bunch of words all the time, especially when they're young. Providing images, videos, and examples. Make questions that prompt students to call attention to the important points, so maybe that one vocab word, or maybe there's something specifically in the picture you want the students to notice and talk about, without you necessarily saying it, you want them to get their attention there. Making things text appropriate, writing things in lists of steps. I work with little kids, so that's something I always do. I say steps and then I have them repeat it back to me. And then giving starters, like sentence starters and things like that. Oops. That's no time.
Alrighty. I have to say with one of the comments you were saying with getting their background knowledge, it made me think of the first lesson plan that I created for this class. I used a mystery lesson because it was so complex. I wanted to do it on my own to understand it. And with the engaging activity that I did was the 20 questions. Engaging in that 20 questions, it let me see a lot of where my kids were. And it goes back to understanding what they know, a background knowledge of how to, use their investigative skills and how I need to approach it differently. And I thought it was amazing when you said that. It made me think of that, of what I did in that lesson and how that I'm going to use that more often, but I'm going to tweak it a little so I can get more, not just in one subject, but in all, so I can get that transferring happening. But I really like that.
Yeah, just reminded me like transfer is the ultimate goal. Like I said, so everything that you said, it just reminded me like even, which I'm gonna talk about next, the transfer part, but that is the ultimate goal. And even when we're doing assessments, we should keep that in mind, because I know assessments is like bam, 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 but just keeping that transfer in mind throughout the entire lesson, like you said, and throughout everything.
Today in class, we have a newscast. I'm gonna try to talk fast. And it was joke of the day. Okay, it's like our little news team. The joke was, why is Cinderella bad at playing football? And the answer was because she's always running from the ball. So some kids laughed, y'all know, second graders, some didn't. But when I tried to explain it, I used Cinderella, and there was one student, he was like, I don't remember Cinderella. Do we supposed to remember that? And all the kids were like, what? So that whole thing about memory, like he didn't internalize that. Whereas a lot of the kids did. And of course, y'all know probably the girls, but yeah, so.
I like that. Always running from the ball.
Always running from the ball. So yeah.
Yeah, which I know we're supposed to move on. Okay, I'm be quiet.
Okay.
I had something else I want to share.
Okay, this is for Miss Chelsea.
Me. Okay.
This was me.
It doesn't matter. I'm not gonna do. You said you were gonna do transfer.
Just don't spill page 119.
No, I won't. You want me to go now, or
you can go.
Somebody's behind you, Nigel, your baby.
My little one.
Okay, I'm ready.
You ready? Okay.
Okay, I'm going to talk about student self-assessment and goal setting. So I'm reading from the bottom of page 131. Students must learn to distinguish sophisticated, well-supported understandings of the conceptual relationships from superficial, poorly supported ones. This means that concept-based teachers must take the time to involve students in creating rubrics and evaluating sample statements of conceptual relationship. One of the things that I liked about this section is that it asks concept-based teachers to involve students in the rubrics. And I've heard of that, but when do we have the time to do that? And I thought it was a great idea, especially at the beginning of the lesson. And they provided a blank example on page 132 of a rubric that was blank. So involve the children and ask them, what do you think? What do you think is off-track work? What do you think is a exemplar product? How should this look at the end? So I thought that was a great idea. There's also self-assessment checklists that will help the children. And that when you provide those types of things for kids, they get invested. And so I thought that was also a great idea. Setting some specific goals one of the examples in our text on page 133 mentioned having portfolios, and that shows progress. I know with at my school is an IB school, and the children put together a portfolio of all the IB units, and so they have that opportunity to see, oh wow, that was back in August, and look at where I am, even though it's a different unit. I think we talked about earlier transferring. So you can even see how the child has progressed, but the children can see how they have progressed themselves. And it made me think about when I first started teaching. Oh my goodness, my first, all y'all remember your first year teaching. I passed out, I called it a portfolio party. So in December, I passed out all the papers I had graded. And I saw a couple of kids, I call them my high kids, erasing their errors. And, but I thought about what if I had maybe done that earlier, or maybe, it was just, I thought was powerful. That at least let me know that they were thinking, oh no, that's not how you're supposed to put a period here, or you're supposed to have a question mark, or this should be a capital letter. But I saw students erasing their incorrect items and correcting them. And I thought that was pretty interesting. Sorry.
All right, so with your goal setting, the thing that that really got me to thinking was getting students involved with the rubric. That puts that accountability piece on them, but that also helps you to see, did they get an in-depth of the concept that you're trying to transfer. That also shows them explicitly too, if you're doing the rubric with them, like this is what the concept that you're looking for, but how to break that down. What does that look like? That helps them to see that in the rubric that they're creating. A lot of times I know time is of essence, in creating that rubric has to be intentional, and to actually do it the way it's supposed to be implemented, it's going to be tricky. So if I had to do it, I would say once in a quarter, twice in a quarter, creating something, a space like that, so that can be created. Because let's be real, we have timelines that we have to meet, and they expect this to be done on top of what you already have to do. So, yeah.
I liked your the portfolio party name. That's really cute. I do something similar. I don't give it a name though. I just tell everybody to take this folder, and if I give you a paper, put it in a folder just to help me organize, so I don't have to sit there all day sorting everything out. But what I notice when I do with my first graders is that they'll get the paper and they'll look at it and be like, oh, I got this wrong. Oh, I didn't do good on this, and they'll see, because I started, explaining the grades to them. So I feel like just them seeing their work, like you were saying, even my kids weren't correcting it. That's amazing that they were correcting their stuff. That's interesting, because then it shows that they're understanding their mistakes. But I want to get my kids to that level too.
All right, Ms. Johnson.
Wait, is it my turn now?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So I got from chapter 5 on page 119, where it's talking about designing summative tasks. On the very bottom of that, it has, when we are assessing conceptual understanding, we need to avoid mistaking students' ability to remember facts for their having a deep and complex understanding of conceptual relationships. For example, if we ask students to discuss what they have learned within a context they are already familiar with, often they can easily regurgitate what we have covered in class. It's sometimes tempting to go through this process and hear students parrot back to us our own thinking. If we do this, however, we are not actually assessing students' understanding, just their ability to recall information they have already learned. And so I like this one because I actually did it today. We were just reviewing theme. And then I was like, okay, what is theme? What is theme? And, I was just going, but, I should have said, what's an example? And it just reminded me that there are different layers of learning. Of course, there's that part where they compared back what you said, but them actually giving me an example, right? That's a layer. And then them actually going out into the world and being able to really use it is an example. And so I've just had to remind myself, sometimes you have to learn in layers. And sometimes, especially, I find myself, well, I'm sure a lot of teachers find themselves teaching to the standard, right? Knowing enough to be able to know it on the test, or knowing it enough to be able to pass it if they see it on milestones or something like that. Because it's hard to go into in-depth teaching and that in-depth learning and the real world stuff, which I try to, especially in math, I try to be like, okay, yes, you may be wanting to build a fence one day and you got to know how to do this area perimeter, but sometimes it's really hard for us to really just like focus and keen in on that with everything. And I was like, okay, me reflecting, I was like, I really need to try to do that more with all parts of learning, and how it will affect them to the real world, and making sure that they have a deeper layer of understanding, and not just knowing, okay, good, the definition, how to find it, perfect, great. You're good for the test, but not like an in-depth definition. And once again, like I said, like the transfer of it is the ultimate goal, like kids being able to go outside the school building and in life and be able to relate that to it. And then as far as that goes in assessment, and it actually talked about putting that in assessment as well, like the actual like being able to transfer their knowledge in the assessment. And I'm sure that takes time, but that was pretty interesting.
All right, time to respond.
So I just wanted to share that, that resonated with me as well, because I think that's going to be the challenge for the gifted children. What I'm finding, our gifted babies, they know so much. They are, they travel, they know things. So when you start presenting a topic, most of them already know. So the challenge to me is always, that transfer piece is very important for them, because it's different when you have a blank slate. But when you start talking about something and somebody's like, oh yeah, my dad said that it's a hurricane on Jupiter, and you're like, okay, how am I going to be able to transfer this knowledge to our study of something else? So I find that to be challenging.
Yeah, that is challenging. I like with the fact versus the conceptual relationship is what I see in my head. Like, I know I'm guilty of this. Like when my kids be parroting back what I'm saying, I'm like, okay, y'all got it. But then when you go to something else and you're like, hold on, I thought you guys got it, but no, we got the facts, but the actual concept that you were trying to get to us, no, we didn't get that. So I know with the babies I teach, it is difficult for them to think outside the box. So I'm constantly have to give them like puzzles to make them just think, because they don't like, they just stop. Like as soon as you give the fact, that is it. Like, no, I want you to go a little bit deeper. Like, why do you think this is? Ask those questions to go deeper in. And I have to teach that explicitly. I noticed with my second graders, because they didn't have that opportunity in first grade. So now I'm having to develop that skill. Okay, so let me go to the next slide. All right, so this is our discussion. We're going to share important, interesting ideas around changes in teaching, coaching, administrative practices. So this is 5 minutes.
I could start off by saying something I noticed. So the thing I like about this book is that it does give you ideas, and it kind of gives you those loopholes around the excuses you make for why you can't do certain things. But one of the things I didn't notice is how they connect these great ideas to actual like district mandated things. So like when I say that, I mean in a sense like my instructional coaches and I'm pretty sure everybody's school does this too. We buy certain programs, certain textbooks, and they expect us to use it. And the thing I don't like is that they expect us to use these things whether we like them or not. At least my school does. A lot of the times they don't ask us about a new program. We just have it and we got to use it. So like something I'm dealing with right now is that my school got this book called Think Up. And they wanted to bring rigor back into the school because last year was the catch-up year. This year is the rigorous. Let's get them up to date now. And I absolutely hate that book. And then the annoying thing about it is that they want us to take this book and use the assessments from this book to align with our math. So all of our math assessments have to come from this book. So it's so hard for me to apply what I'm learning here with that subject because they already have a planned assessment for me, which is crazy because it kind of contradicts everything I'm learning. So it's like, how you guys want me to do check-ins, informatives, and summatives when every assessment is going to be exactly like the last one, but a new standard. It's all multiple choice. It's always going to have short answer, and it's all going to be on a piece of paper written out. And that's just not how I teach. So I've been having a hard time adjusting and I guess calibrating to that idea because it's like, all right, you guys want me to do this. I hate this book. It's too rigorous. It's not on a first grade level. My kids are failing these tests. But then when I make my own summatives and my own check-ins, they do pretty okay. So it's just like, it's kind of hard to put these things they want into actual real life things because of the nitty gritty of our job, the other parts, you know, the parts where the district and your coaches and your admin. So that's just something I wanted to share.
Yeah,
Right,
what you
yeah,
were
I
saying
can
about the district
feel you on that.
and the miscommunication, I feel this is a wonderful idea. I love this. But this would be great if this was a target for the whole school, for the whole district. If
Mhm.
everybody was on board and said, hey, we're going to concept-based curriculum. This is what we're doing. It's going to be project-based. And that would be perfect. We would have the planning time to do all of that. But I think with that being said, we know the reality of what we're in. The only way I see this being implemented and how I'm doing it now, I am segmenting out some time in the quarter and saying, I'm going to implement this skill in this quarter. I'm going to focus on this one skill and do as best I can with it, with all the other stuff that I have to do with it, because this is really good. And this is good for our high thinkers because it does allow them to dive deeper into a concept. And actually, if I'm telling you one thing in math, you can take that to social studies, you can take that to science, and you can even use it when you go home and play with your baby sister or something, you know, just teaching or having playmates or whatever, you know, that's our goal. That's what we want. Yeah, I understand what you're saying, Ms. Penny. I do.
Yeah, I'm there too. I will say, just having taught a while, that if you don't let that, you know, it's going to be more work for you. But in the end, the way you're teaching and using these skills, you're going to get the results, and they're going to see your results. May not be on a Think Up test, but it might be on a map test. It might be on a standardized test, and your children will be more well-rounded. They'll be able to write, they'll be able to think, and that's ultimately the goal. So,
Yeah.
you know, that's kind of how when I go off the rails, and it's the result.
Feedback to hear that the ultimate goal will be met. But I'm like, how do you implement all of this? The timing of it, that's the thing. Cause it's talking about feedback throughout and I understand like it's great stuff, like y'all said, but I'm just, every time I read through this stuff, I'm like, how am I supposed to give all this detailed feedback to 22 kids on everything that they,
But you know,
but I guess,
yeah, because like I did some of the strategies. I did the compare and contrast, and I did a top hat organizer. And people look at it and they're like, oh my God, your kids did that? Yeah, they gonna by December, my kids will be writing, and people are gonna be, you know, might not be good on the Think Up test, but they can write.
yeah.
All right, so we're about to do our debriefing. Did anything surprising arise in the discussion? You guys can see the screen. So we're gonna just go start it.
This week I actually did the strategic lesson. I actually did it yesterday, and my students, I honestly went into it thinking, okay, they're probably not going to do good because we're not really on writing level. I didn't have a lot of hope in my kids. I'm not going to lie to you. I should have believed in them more because they did a amazing job. And like, the reason I'm bringing it up is because we're learning about formative assessments and how to do those check-ins. And, prior to me giving them I did the, I don't know if y'all read it. It's called, Did You Hear What I Hear? That's the strategy I did. So basically it's a retelling strategy. So I guess you could use it for probably social studies and reading and maybe even math with certain concepts. But basically what you do is you read a story twice. The first time kids listen, the second time they take notes. But since my kids are first grade, and I'm trying to talk fast because I don't want to waste all the time. But since my kids are in first grade, they drew pictures to help them remember. And the second time I was reading, my kids were actually drawing their pictures and taking their time and listening to me. So it was interesting that they enjoyed drawing the pictures. And because they knew they had to draw pictures of the story, they were listening better. And then when they were done, the next part was for them to share with a partner. So they had to explain their pictures to the partner. So these kids aren't even realizing they're retelling the story as they're sharing their pictures now. So now they got that. I'm listening, I'm walking around. I'm like, okay, he's using beginning, middle, end. I like the words I'm hearing. So it's giving me that little, the informal assessment that they're using those vocab words I like. Problem, solution. And then at the end of it, once they're done sharing, we answer some questions together. And then I had them do a retelling. So for higher grades, I'm pretty sure you would write. My kids, I had pictures of the story and they had to put it in order. And when I tell you every single child got it right, every single child got that part right. They put it in order perfectly. I even have my more higher kids right underneath what was happening. So it was just a great way for me to see, because prior to me giving this lesson, we did another story. We didn't go off so well. So this was like the second story on the same retelling standard. And it was like, okay, well, this was a great little check-in for me. I'm going to use this as a quiz grade because this shows me they understand. I didn't have to repeat instructions. They got it. They liked it. So like, I just wanted to share that because I honestly didn't have any faith in these strategic lessons. I thought they were way too advanced for my kids, but it worked out really well.
Yeah, I like that. What you just did, you got them they learned the strategy. They're not just going to use it just for that. They're going to be able to use that across the board. I can see your students doing that strategy without you even saying it. I can see them doing that if you're doing like a review or something. And if you just say, hey, take notes, I can see them like, hey,
How they know.
we're gonna, you know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So I can see that. I did my mystery lesson too. And it was an eye opener for me because I was a little iffy because my kids are shaky with writing.
Mhm.
But we did the mystery and I gotta say the thought process that they were having, going back and forth with each other and how they were building off. Well, hold on. No, she said it was a vegetable, but she didn't say it was sweet. No, you can't say that. Like the going back and forth. And I was like,
Dialogue.
yeah, I was loving it. I said, I got to do this more often. But I want to step it up a little bit more with the mystery lesson. But and also when the kids got to pull the pictures out and they were talking amongst themselves, trying to figure out, well, how are they all related? It was just a question. And then everything they were saying was right aligned with what I was looking for without me having to say anything, just with pictures alone and them feeding off of each other. So I
It was
like
like a student-based construction type of thing. Mhm.
right.
I did the mind's eye strategy, which is, I think, kind of similar, where they took, you just have words and you say the words with some emotion, some feeling. I turned the lights off. I kind of did a big, I was like, I'm only going to share these words with you. I said them slowly. I had the children close their eyes and then they had to think about, and I displayed the words, but I read them first. I read them twice. And then I was like, all right, open your eyes and draw what you think is happening in this story. And then after I gave them 15 minutes to do that, I told them to just write one question that they have or you need more information about. After that, we read the book. Soon as they got the book, you can see that I tried to record a video of children going, I knew it, or what? It's two chameleons in the story. And so that was So, because I didn't think mine was gonna go well at all either. Like, this isn't gonna happen. So, yeah.
Yeah, I've been struggling. I'm behind on this gifted work, but hearing all those things gave me hope. And tomorrow we're gonna make it happen.
I need a strategy for I've done 2 with the reading. Have you all done any of the strategies with math or?
I only did one lesson.
Yeah,
I haven't even started.
I haven't either.
I was
Okay.
gonna take your mystery lesson idea and probably use that. We're about to get into a new science standard, so I might use that mystery lesson strategy for my science standard coming up. But I'm taking my time with, ever since she said she's not gonna
Yes.
take points off for lateness. I've been taking my
Yes.
time. I'm not gonna lie to
Yes.
y'all.
I am scared to do a mystery lesson because the mystery lesson that we had, I
Mm.
was.
Yeah, but that was
No,
really
no,
advanced for
that's
us
it.
though.
Yes, it was. It was complex. That's why I chose it, because I was like, I really want to understand this. I broke it down to where I had a bag. I had images in the bag. The children asked 20 questions. They didn't get the 20 because they were so back and forth with stuck on the fact that what's in the bag. Like, so, and then when they
Okay.
looked at the images, they actually was conversing with each other, and we were doing connections. But it was connections between scientific and historical events. And they were looking at the images, and then they were able to recall, and it was fun. It was fun. I didn't think it was gonna be that, but I was nervous. I was like, y'all ain't gonna do good. I just know it. Y'all are gonna be like, what is this? But I had this one kid that kept saying, there's nothing in the bag. Why did you tell me it's something in the bag? He even wrote it on the paper that I used to get what they thought about the mystery lesson. He said, there's nothing in the bag. So why did you have me guess this? That was my high kid. I said, why?
Oh,
Really?
wow.
Really? It was something in the bag, but he just was like, it needed to be something he
Overthinking.
actually touched that was tangible. The images for him blew his mind. He was done. He was done.
Love it. I may try mystery. I just.
And where did y'all get those ideas from? You got those from the video?
No, the strategic lesson, the book,
Oh, okay,
strategic
yeah, yeah, yeah.
teacher.
This one right
This-
here.
Okay, got
Yeah,
you.
this whole book is all strategies, nothing. There's no like deep reading.
Yeah.
It's every page is a different strategy or an example of how to do it. And the cool thing about it is that they'll give like resources too. Like, oh, if you go to this website, you can find this story. Now, I'm not gonna lie to you, the stories they give you, super complex. Didn't use them. I did not use any of that. But
Yeah.
everything else, the examples are a great little layout of how to do everything.
And use something you're already working on. That's
Mhm.
what helped me.
Make
Yeah.
it go with
Okay.
your lesson so it makes sense. Don't do nothing extra just because. That's
Right.
that's why I
You don't
waited.
have time for that.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm.
Right.
Right, yeah.
Now that was it. We
All
made
right.
it.
I think we weren't talking about the conceptual chapter 5, but oh well.
Oh, this
It's a
tied
deeper
in.
though.
Hold on, let me
That's
stop.
the
This is
thing.
actually the silent reflection time anyway.